What is up, everybody? Welcome back to Truth and Transparency. My name is Lana, and I will be your host. Back with more Idaho4 information. It is Thursday all day today, August 20. What? Let's take a look. It's the 28th. This episode is titled "Vandals Football Coach Submitted DNA Sample During Murder Investigation," as well as more. We're going to get right into it. The Idaho State Police, there's two different reports here. I want you guys to take a look, though. Right here, again, report 117. It is incorrectly identified that it was written on 12/8. No. It was, the interview was on 12/8/2022. Now, this next report that I'm going to end up showing you is report number 200, which the interview took place on December 9th, as you can see, 2022. December 8th, 2022. So this interview is what led to then this interview here. And we're going to get right into it. So on December 8th, a gentleman from the Idaho State Police, Detective Adams, along with ISP Detective Joe Lake, they interviewed a girl who goes to the University of Idaho. And this is how this all gets relayed, is that she was a babysitter. She babysat for some of the football coaches, okay? This girl was the person who blank in order to either babysit or get a babysitter for them. So there's a family, okay? And Kaylee was identified by this person as being one of the babysitters that they used. Very important to note that the family, the coaching staff, the family, the coach, his wife, the wife, the husband, neither one of them came forward and said, hey, she babysat for us. Okay. Really, really interesting there. Nobody ever came forward and said, hey, she babysat for us, one of those victims. Okay. Instead, this is how it gets all out there. This girl stated that she was only aware of one family that Kaylee worked for as a babysitter. She identified that family as the Blanks. I believe I know who it is. Blank explained she had met with the Blanks while working in the recruiting department for the University of Idaho. Okay. Let me tell you something. If you're a really good recruiter, you can really work up the ladder. You want to get into recruiting when you're in coaching. If you can recruit, you can win championships. If you can't recruit kids, you won't win shit. Okay. You either better find good coaches around you that are good recruiters, or you need to be one yourself if you're going to be a head coach one day, or you won't win shit. You need talent in the collegiate level to win, bottom line. So this girl knows Kaylee, actually also knows Xana. And so this is how Kaylee gets in the mix. And while this girl was working in the recruiting department for the University of Idaho, she met this coach, and then this coach in turn, then she met the wife, okay, and agreed to babysit for them. And ultimately that's how, like I said, then Kaylee got in with this family. This girl explained that she was the primary babysitter and coordinated with the Blank in order to schedule other girls to babysit. Blank created spreadsheets and time slots for other girls to babysit. Very, very interesting. Blank was, this girl, the main contact for each girl when they babysat. Okay. So this girl went on to explain that Kaylee babysat for this family, this coach, during the summer of 2022. She was unsure how many times, but it was a lot of times. Okay. The cops asked I asked Blank, this girl, if that was the only way she knew the victims. And she said, no, actually, I'm close friends with Xana. Then I find out that this girl is involved with the sororities. That's how she knows Xana. So you got, now remember Emily Alant. Remember how she's like, I'm going to go work the football game that day? So you got the sororities. This is what's interesting, is athletes and sororities, they usually don't mix. But here, when I found out and did my homework, that the sororities, and one of them being the sororities that the girls belong to, they actually worked a lot with the Vandal football the Vandal football team. They worked in the recruiting department. They helped on game days. So this is a way that girls would cross paths with athletes that were sororities, girls and athletes, football players. So keep that in your back pocket. Next, I asked blank for contact information for the blanks, like the family, the last name. She provided the phone number of blank for the blanks and blank. All right. Now, this is where it gets interesting. This interview would take place on December 9th. So like I told you, this one was on December 8th. This interview would take place on December 9th, just a day later. Okay. But this interview being written up in a report gets held back for almost 2 years. I'm sorry, yeah. As you can see, it's like let's see, about a year and a half. A year and a half. This does not get written up and made available for, let's say, like the defense, okay, or anybody for that matter, because it's not in a written report, until June of 2024. Okay? Now, why is this going to be significant? Well, because what's in the report is significant. A big thing that they focused on in this investigation was, oh my God, if you had your phone shut off, it was, how damn dare you have your phone shut off during the time of the murders? Okay? Like, if your phone's normally on, why would it ever be off? Well, let's take a look. Kaylee had babysat for a family in the Moscow area during the summer of 2022. The family blank, again, it's husband and wife, and their 2 children lived at this address. After the interview with blank, I obtained blank's phone numbers, meaning the girl. I requested the cast agents to check the time frame. So before going to this interview with the football coach and his wife, since who they interviewed on the 8th had their phone numbers, okay, he then submits those phone numbers to the cast team, okay, the cast agent, to check the time frame for which we had cell phone data at the time. Now, there's 2 different numbers. Blank data appeared to place blank phone at their residence on the night of the murders. However, when I checked blank phone data, his location was not within the data collected. This could occur if the phone is turned off. Based on the information from blank and the lack of data for blank, we decided to interview both of these 2 people, husband and wife. On December 9th, Detective Herman and I interviewed blank at her place of employment. She works for blank, blank, blank. Blank has not sent in any tips regarding Gonsalves' employment with her as a babysitter. See that? Can you imagine that? Can you imagine that you find out that your babysitter was murdered in one of the biggest cases that has hit, I couldn't tell you in how long, and that's your babysitter. She was murdered, and you guys don't reach out to say, oh my gosh, we know her. This is how we know her, because you'd want to, any type of possible way that this girl was killed. This family does not reach out to law enforcement to say, hey, Kaylee was our babysitter. Welcome to the transparency. It is my opinion that the coach is now the head coach of the team right now. It is that this is my opinion. I do not have proof of this. This is the part where I'm saying my opinion is that the family that's actually leading the Vandals right now, I believe, I think it was 2024, 2025, just hired recently, is now the head coach. Again, I could be totally wrong, but I did what I do, and I looked at the birth dates, and so again, I believe that this coach is still with the team, and I believe that this person could potentially be the head coach right now. Again, this is just my opinion. Anyways, on December 9th, 2022, ISP Detective Herman and I interviewed blank at her place of employment, right? And she had not sent in any tips regarding Kaylee as her babysitter. I think that's fucking bullshit, man. I'm just going to say it. That is wild. Okay? All you guys that are moms out there and dads, think about it for a second. All right? If you're going to leave your child with somebody, right? Our babies are our world, right? And I'm going to think back, okay, who is my kid's babysitter? Okay, yep. In that bracket of like a high school kid or like a college kid. Okay, yep. Can you imagine one of them being murdered and you not saying a word? And now think about, oh, are you really not saying anything because of the connection to the football program? Because that's bullshit. It makes it look like it, because this report was held back until June of 2024. More importantly, the football coach, whoever this is, his phone's normally on, and it was turned off during the time of the murders. I began the interview with blank and asked her if Kaylee had been babysitting for her or any other of the families. Blank confirmed Kaylee did babysit for her and may have babysat for another family, but wasn't sure. The wife told me her husband, blank, had introduced her to blank, who coordinated childcare for, I think it's the football family, stated that they were approximately 5 sorority sisters who would provide child. There you go. So this is how paths are crossing here. The sorority sisters are providing babysitting jobs for the football coaches. Okay. Really? Gracias. Next, again, 5 sorority sisters who would provide childcare for blank. Stated only way she paid the girls was the Venmo app, and now triggers in the Venmo app again. Okay. People ask all the time, why don't you use Venmo? This case is why I will never use Venmo. Venmo. I began the interview, right here. Blank stated Kaylee had provided childcare for them a few weeks during the spring semester of 2022. She told us the last time Kaylee babysat for them was on her 21st birthday. The wife here stated that Kaylee had babysat for them 5 or 6 times total. And what's interesting is that when you ask the girl that has the spreadsheets on, hey, she's scheduling everybody with spreadsheets, Excel spreadsheets, okay? Hey, I'm going to need those. Did they get them? Because it doesn't say that they did. Because the girl was like, oh yeah, she babysat for them many times. Remember, many times. The wife here saying in the spring, babysat for us. What does it say here? 5, 6 times, a few, not that many times. A few weeks during the spring semester of nothing about the summer. Nothing about the summer. So what was Kaylee doing then for them if that girl thinks that she was babysitting for them in the summer? And this wife saying in the spring. It's 2 totally different times. And then one of the times she just remembers her 21st birthday because Kaylee had babysat for them 5 or 6 times total. Kaylee said that she paid the girls $15 an hour for the work. Blank stated Kaylee was not a full-time employee. Blank stated most of the work occurred during the week. I mean, a full-time employee. Of course. Would you ever consider a babysitter a full-time employee? Like, I don't understand how I want to hear this interview. Again, we have to remember that these are not the words of the people that are being interviewed. These are the words of the report who it belongs to, the author, which should be a cop. I asked Blank what a normal routine for her family was when there was a football game at home. Because guess what? There was a home football game that day that led into that night. So here she says that Blank explained that her and her family usually attended the home football games. And for the game on November 12th, 2022, they had family in town for the game. Blank said that she attended the game. Blank told me her and her family, minus Blank, were at home when they found out about the murder that occurred near the university. She told me that her husband was in the office when he was part of the lockdown. He was at the Kibbe Dome, which makes sense. They go in the next day. That's what they do. And then because their days off are normally Mondays. And so they break down film or like debrief and stuff like that. The coaches will. That's accurate. That's what they do. And 99% of the programs. Okay, so so the wife told me that I asked Blank about her personal interaction with Kaylee. She described Kaylee as being bubbly and a great person. The wife said that the only time she ever saw her not happy was on her 21st birthday, because she kind of went out on her 21st birthday and lived it up, and then came to babysit and I think was hungover. So she said the only time she ever saw her not happy was on her 21st birthday. She told me that Kaylee arrived at the house to watch the children, appearing to be hungover. Blank said she helped Kaylee feel better. Really interesting language. I asked the wife if there were any other applications other than a messaging application they use to communicate or schedule babysitting. She told me there wasn't. I asked how the girls who babysat were paid. She told me it was all through Venmo. Like, why are you repeating the same shit, buddy? Blank said that she was paying the girls $15 an hour to babysit. Again, she already said that. The wife told me that she never had any conversations with Kaylee outside of babysitting, except for when Kaylee arrived at her house to babysit on her 21st birthday. And then they keep saying this, but don't say anything about it. The wife told me that Kaylee quit being a babysitter for her, and the wife learned Kaylee had accepted a job as an intern for some sort of IT company. Blank told us, the wife told us that for the new job, Kaylee was going to work remotely for the IT company and offered to continue watching the kids during the summer. The wife explained she learned the internship was a 40-hour-a-week internship that paid $25 an hour. So then that means Kaylee didn't quit if she's offering to still work and babysit. You see, that's just really confusing. But we get a first little glimpse here that she was making $25 an hour for this internship over the summer, 40 hours a week. The wife of the football coach told me that The last time she had contact with Kaylee was in July of 2022. Okay. Toward the end of the interview, I asked Blank, the wife, if there was ever an inappropriate relationship between herself and Kaylee, or between Blank and Kaylee, or any inappropriate relationship with any of the other babysitters. The wife told me there had never been any inappropriate relationships that she was aware of. The wife told me that Blank had little to no interaction with any of the babysitters. The only one who ever attended dinner with the Blank family, was Blank. And I'm guessing that's the person that sets everything up. Now, one day I'll tell you about my story on how when I saw this, I was really looking for something like this, a connection with coaching staff over there, as well as like, administrative people in like positions of power. When I saw how just, wow, President Green, he is just like kind of running the show, and why. So after he concluded the interview with her, he then contacted the husband, and they met in the Kibbe Dome. Okay. And this would be the coach. This is the male now. So at approximately 11:37 a.m., we began the interview with the coach. Okay. And one of the ISP guys, I explained why we wanted to talk with him. He was not nervous and not afraid to speak with us. Remember, this report was written up June of 2024. The murders were November of 2022. I explained why we wanted to talk, blah, blah, blah. And they just want to add, he just wants to add in his personal, he was not nervous at all and not afraid to speak with us. This person explained that he was a football coach for the Vandals. Okay. Blank went on to explain, the coach, that he had met Blank while working and asked if she would be willing to babysit. Blank agreed, and that is how Blank came to know Kaylee. And so here, what he's saying is that he actually met Kaylee and asked her if she wanted to babysit. Okay? That's how I'm understanding this. I'm going to read it again, and you guys tell me if you think that he met Kaylee through the girl that did the spreadsheets. Okay? Again. He went on, so coach went on to explain he met this girl. Okay, that's why the name's blanked out. He met this girl while working and asked if she'd be willing to babysit. So I take it as, I misspoke. He is saying that he met Kaylee through the other girl because he saw this girl at one point, the girl that was first interviewed. At one point, he saw her and was like, hey, do you want to babysit? Okay. And then he's saying, I met Kaylee because of the girl that's actually setting it all up. But here, he didn't go through have an admin talk to the admins of the sorority house or something like that. He went straight up to a student and said this. Okay. Which is the girl that did the spreadsheets. And that's how he came to know Kaylee. Blank even explained that after asking Blank about babysitting, he didn't even save her phone number in his phone for obvious reasons. Well, then if you were already thinking that, then you would have never asked that person like that to babysit. You would never do this in 2020, 2021, in 2020. They go over this. It's called compliance. Okay. They have meetings with coaches all the time at the beginning of the year. When I say the beginning of the year, it's normally in August of the school year, and they sit down all the coaches and they sit down all the athletes, and it's a huge compliance meeting. And they go over a ton of shit And this would be not in compliance of how the fuck you do something. You could have done this back in 20 before cell phones. This isn't how you would do this. You would never go up to a student as a coach and ask them to babysit for your kid. That's just not what you would do. Period. The football coaching staff has so many people that you would work through your people, and then they would work out to whoever people, and that's how it would be. Like, there would be none of this talking to a kid like this. I'm just saying. You could get into a lot of trouble. Blank appeared very conscious of how it may look if he was contacting female students. Blank stated he was not involved very much with the other babysitters. Or, I'm sorry. He was not. Where was I? Conscious of it. It may look okay for female students. The coach stated that he was not involved very much with the babysitters and did not handle any of the logistics of it. Outside of redacted, had little to no contact with the other babysitters. So I would say outside of the contact with that main girl, okay. He had very little contact with the babysitters. And told us he had met Kaylee maybe 2 times. And that's always like a famous number to say, like 2 times, you know, like once, maybe I met her like twice, the 2-time ones. Any interaction he had with the babysitters was mostly in passing. Blank confirmed blank statements, like his wife. So he confirmed basically his wife's statements of how they knew Kaylee and how the babysitting operations was performed. Blank explained that after the games, he would meet with the other coaches at a location off campus. And Blank told us that on the day of the incident, he was notified of the murders when he was already in the Kibbe Dome, game day planning for the next week. We asked Blank if he had seen any of the victims after the football game the night before. And he said he had not seen any of the victims after the football game. I asked the coach what he did after the game. He stated that he went to the Best Western, as it's custom after games, with the other coaches, and then they went home. So I looked up the Best Western because I'm like, wait, what's there? Like, that's like, is it got some like, you know, big, I get it, like alum go and hang out there, whatever, but they just go back to the Best Western. Like, that's just what they do. And then he said, and then he went home. I asked the coach what contact was like with the blank. He told me okay, so I know what he says here. He wanted to know what his contact was like with his players. Like, how would they contact you? How would you contact your student athletes, your football team? Okay. Which I played 2 sports at the University of Cincinnati. And yes, I had my coaches. Obviously, we had the office, the basketball office number. We had our coaches had our number. We had their number. Duh. And so they could contact us and we can contact them. But I will tell you this, that in the entirety of basketball, my cell phone never rang. Like, it would be no. And then during golf, it would be, yeah, because that was a lot different with like transportation and shit. But very, very rarely. But with basketball, I don't think I ever got a phone call. Because they could do like curfew checks to make sure you were at home. But that's when people started not having landlines anymore. So it was like you're calling someone's cell phone. They could be anywhere. Anyways, so he was asking this to see how he communicated with his players. And he said that he told me that his phone was always on and that his players could reach out to him if need be, but that was not the standard. Exactly. It's because it's not the standard. But he told me his phone was always on but that's not a standard. I asked if his phone was normally on 24/7, and he said it was. And now this is getting this dude, okay, who, first of all, has already thought to himself, when I say this dude, the interviewee, the guy from Idaho State Police, he should have been already thinking, wow, I can't believe that they didn't come forward and say, hey, she babysat for us. Okay. Like, come on. I'm telling you, they would have told somebody. And I think the athletic department said, don't fucking say a word. I think the athletic department, I believe that they maybe even went to Scott Green. And Scott Green said, don't say anything. Okay. It's outrageous that they would not come forward and tell the police that Kaylee babysat for them. Okay. I believe that they did. I believe that this coach and his wife did tell somebody. And I believe that those people said either, well, wait till they come to you, or I mean, I can't imagine what type of advice that they could possibly give that wouldn't say that you need to disclose this. Okay. Now, mind you, the Vandals are already having scandals with the volleyball. I mean, just a bunch of shit's going on in the athletic department. Okay. And then here's Scott Green just in the mix of everything. So right here, this guy, as an investigator, says, okay, they didn't come forward. And now the coach is telling me that he has his phone on 24/7. And before I even went to this meeting, I gave his number over to the cast agent, Nick Balance. And Nick Balance says, yeah, that number is not on here, meaning that number is turned off or out of the service, out of the area. Like if he's saying he's at home and they're within that grid, okay, that means this guy's cell phone, the wife's is on, and her phone shows that she's, at home, basically. Where it needs to be. This guy's cell phone is not on the map. Okay. Yeah, phone's on 24/7. I was shocked when I did not read in these next sentences to say anything like this. Okay, we just have to ask, where were you during the time of the murders? Okay. After explaining the totality of the circumstance and the link between him and Kaylee, I asked Blank if he would be willing to provide a DNA sample. We explained the sample was going to be used to rule out or match a person to any evidence that may be obtained. We also explained the DNA sample would not be placed into the national database. Let me explain something. I've read all of these reports, every single one of them. Not a single report does any ISP type up that they explain that, hey, guess what? This is not going in the national database. Why would you need to say that? Why are you saying that? I can only imagine what type of conversations being had here. And I will say this, I'm actually shocked that the coach talked to the police without a representative there. I would have never done that. I would have never done that as a coach. Absolutely not. I would be cooperative, but I'm going to do everything. Especially there is a connection here. She babysat for us. You know? But yeah, we're not putting it in the national database. He ultimately, that means he was reluctant, but he ultimately agreed, and we obtained a sample from him. The sample was later given to the Moscow Police Department. What do you mean was later? Again, I'm just trying to find the chains of custody here. I mean, okay, there's got to be another report saying you went and you gave this to them. Did they even do anything with it, you guys? Now listen to this. The question is, if they waited all this time to even write up the report, all right, this turning in this evidence without a report. I mean, what? You obtained, he ultimately agreed, and we obtained a sample from him. A sample of what? You swabbed him. Everything else always talks about how they did the sampling. Okay. Did you take a hair out of his head? What did you do? This is the report. Again, weird shit's in it. But this report doesn't get written up until June of 2024. And so how are you just carrying over some sample here? And they're gonna be like, what is this? Who is this? Whose is this? What does this go with? Oh, we interviewed the football coach. Here's his DNA. Okay. There's no report written on the interview, though. Nothing is typed up. Nothing. The sample was later given to the Moscow Police Department and processed according to their policy and procedures. Again, never saw anything like that written in any of these reports. I also asked if Blank had any inappropriate relationships with any of the victims or students at the university. Blank denied any inappropriate relationships. There were no other tips or statements to say otherwise. How are you writing that up in December? In December. That would never even be there then. Like, you're writing this report so long later so that you're saying, hey, but there were no other tips or statements to say otherwise. Really? Oh, great. Blank told me that the only interaction he had with Kaylee outside of babysitting was when she arrived at the house to watch the kids, and she appeared hungover on that one occasion. He told us his wife took care of her. We concluded our interview with Blank. Now, again, if you're just joining us, here's the beginning part, which is the reason they ever even went to interview him. They weren't going to even go interview him. After the interview with the girl that is setting up the babysitting stuff, I obtained Blank's phone numbers. I requested the cast agents to check the time frame for which we had cell phone data at that time. What they're looking at, that 3 to 5. Okay. Blank's data appeared to be, so it was like a phone number, or, if they put that phone number, data appeared to place Blank phone at their residence on the night of the murders. However, when I checked Blank phone data, his location was not within the data collected. And now this can only happen for a couple reasons. This can occur if the phone is turned off. Based on the information from Blank, the girl that they spoke with, I believe, and the lack of data for Blank's phone number, we decided to interview both of this family, both. I'm guessing it's going to be whatever the last name is, apostrophe S. Period. I am going to be covering the hearing, and that is at 1 p.m. and there is a link for it. So, no offense, but I don't care if his data would have been on the radar. You would have still interviewed this person. Okay? You'd have interviewed both of these people, and you'd want to ask, why didn't you guys come forward and let us know that Kaylee babysat for you? I mean, can you believe this shit? And then if it's not a big deal, okay, this is the PR nightmare. This is a PR nightmare for the Vandals, for Scott Green. He just became president. He wanted to clean up the area, make it more safe. That's not what happened. It always struck me as odd. Dylan just talking about, like, you know, immediately saying that the person that did this was white, you know? But she didn't know how she knew that. Anyways. But I will be covering the Maddie's parents, and then recently joined by Ethan's family. They are having a hearing because they are the temporary restraining order on crime scene photos. So that'll be live, and that'll be at 1:00 Eastern Standard Time. I set that live for at 12:30. But so bottom line is did they even ask for either one of their cell phones here? If you found out that his phone, I don't know, wasn't in, like, it's not on the cast, and then you don't even ask him where he was during the murder, and you know that his phone's not, you know, on the map, you don't ask him where he was during the murders, or did he, and he just didn't write it down in here. But a lot of red flags here. And it's just my opinion that this coach is now the head coach of the Vandals football team. But we also, I feel like they knew, the wife knew a little bit about her. I mean, that she had this internship with this IT program, and that she was going to make $25 an hour. I mean, that's some intel there. You know, guess what? I went and checked Kaylee's Venmo in July of 2022. And I always wondered who the Ford person was. Ford, Ford. And I was like, oh, who's this Ford person? Venmo. If you know, you know. Wait till you see my Ford was in the Venmos. Ford's the head coach now. His wife's a pretty little blonde girl. They have beautiful kids. And, but yeah, if you look at the Venmos, you're going to find a name by the name of Ford in Kaylee's Venmos. But I always wondered who the Ford was. I could never put the Ford to anything. And I was like, oh my God. Ford was in Kaylee's Venmos. And so it tells me also that they didn't even go through Kaylee's Venmos, because they would have found that out themselves. They would have went through Kaylee's Venmos on who these people were, you know? Ford, like, you know, DB. Ford was in Kaylee's Venmos. Ford is the last name of a Vandals football coach that was a Vandals football coach in 2022, and now he is the head coach. So, I personally think it's shit that they didn't come forward. It got me to thinking back about the days when I played, and I knew a ton of coaches, and I couldn't imagine that if people that I worked for and with and if they would have never come forward if I was killed to say, hey, they worked for me, or they babysat, or whatever it was. Hey, she helped run my camps, you know. And so I'm gonna put up a really sad. I think it's bullshit. That's like you guys do know that's like a huge red flag, right? Like huge red flag to an investigator. Like, why didn't they come forward? And then you find out that he's not on the fucking. His phone should be. It's on 24/7. He's at his home. Why isn't his phone on the map like his wife's is? And I personally think that he was cheating. That's what I think. I think he was cheating. Okay. But what are the odds? What are the odds? His phone was not on during the time. Well, this is what the cops say. It's the same thing that you're going ham about. Okay, Brian Kohlberger. Holy shit, his phone's not on during the time of the crime. Well, what kind of vehicles do these people own? What kind of vehicles do these people own? You know, like it's right here. After their interview with the girl that sets up the babysitting, who's a sorority chick, okay? The ISP give Nick Balance, hey, here are these phone numbers. I request that the cast agents to check the time frame for which we had cell phone data at the time. And blank's data appeared to place blank at the residence. That's the wife. But guess what? However, when I checked blank's data, the dude, the coach, now the head coach, his location was not within the data collected. This can occur if your phone's turned off. Is this chick for real? It's not normal. His phone isn't next to his wife. He's a cheat. That's what's just crazy talk. It's better than being a killer. What do you mean? What I'm saying is if his phone is turned off and he's truly not at home, I don't think he's committing the murders. I think he's cheating. That's what I'm saying. And then said that it has to be next to his wife, Brian. What the fuck are you talking about? I'm saying in a murder investigation, this Kaylee Gonsalves babysat for you. Think about it, Brian. Kaylee babysat for you, and your wife, and you and your wife don't come forward and say, hey, oh, and you're a prominent coach at the university, and you don't say, hey, Kaylee babysat for us, man. Kaylee babysat for us. Like, who do we need to talk to? Right? But then who would ever want to put themselves in a murder investigation? You would never want to fucking do that, would you? Look at what happened to Richard Allen. Woo! Your phone off does not mean that you're killing anybody. My point is that they went ham over the fact of, oh my God, Brian Kohlberger's phone is not on. Well, on December 8th, you have a direct connection. How do you know that they didn't come forward? Oh, you want me to read? Oh, maybe you need help reading, Brian. I guess you miss it. Listen, buddy, I was an athlete. I'm going to always support athletes over here. Okay. And it says it right here. Maybe it's a little lower right there. They didn't come forward and submit any other tips either. Right here. On December 9th, 2022, ISP Detective Herman and I interviewed the Fords, or it's blank Ford, whatever her first name is, blank Ford, at her place of employment. She works for blank, 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 blank. Blank had not sent in any tips regarding Kaylee's employment with her as a babysitter. What else you want, brother? Go run around. Go run around. Bye. Watch it from the beginning. I'm saying in the beginning, in December 8th, you find out via a girl who's a babysitter. Oh, yeah, Kaylee babysat for the football team. What? Yeah, well, for the football coaches. Okay, so you get this information. Then you guys all start talking. Hey, did so-and-so, like you're going to, once you know that he's a football coach, how the police department over there would have handled that, they would have called up Scott Green. Hey, Green, what do you know about so-and-so? Well, hey, can we try lightly with this? Like, we got the mainstream media all over this. Like, let's make sure that everything's cool. Like, do like a ton of due diligence before this would to get out. Okay. And I would agree with that. Okay. So, but in December of 2022, you have no leads, you have nothing, supposedly, right? December 8th. And they write it down here is that the wife's phone's on and the husband's phone is off. And in this report, they don't ask either person where they were during the murders. Okay. And also during this report, he notes that, hey, you guys never came forward to tell the police anything. But hey, they're looking for a white vehicle. Okay. Think about this. You're looking for a white vehicle at this point. Wouldn't you make it a point to talk about, hey, neither one of these two owned anything that could possibly resemble a white vehicle? It's a sedan and it's a Elantra. You'd be putting that stuff on there. Okay. You never, yes, thank you. You never ever turn your phone off, and this girl who babysits for you turns up dead, and you're not on the geofence. Yeah. And all you would do is you just, as a detective, you would explore more into, hey, and then maybe they can say, hey, we got his DNA. Okay, perfect. Then we did what with it? You'd have to give it to the lab, right? And they get the profile, and then they're going to compare it, right? To all of these samples. Okay, but ready for this? If you don't put in some of the samples until after the 8, like, so which you'd have to ask yourself, because we don't have it right here, is after seeing the Delphi case and what they did in that case, did this ever even, was anything ever done with it? I don't know. You know, the Delphi case, they were swabbing the family over and over and over because they were just losing the samples that they were supposed to get and take to the lab. It's very, very mind-blowing. Anyways, the way that it just ends up is that there's no follow-up to it. And the interview's on this day. They write the wrong date there, and the interview's actually not bumped up into the computer system and typed up as a report until June, right before June 13th of 2024. So again, thank you for all of your hard work. Woo woo. Thank you so much. Mina Cox. What a name. What a name, Mina. Mina Cox. For $49.99. Thank you so much, Mina Cox. All right. Again, you can find both of those reports, Idaho State Police 117 and Idaho State Police 200. And this was all kept hush-hush as fuck. We don't even know if it was worked right. And then if you want to do some cross-reference, you can go and grab the Venmo transactions from Kaylee Gonzalez, and there is a Ford that is within her Venmo transactions. And when you cross-reference the athletic website, you will see the Fords were coaching family back in 2022, and the Fords are now the face of the Vandals. A beautiful family, and this by no means is me saying anything negative about them whatsoever. This is just me reporting on what transpired in an investigation of former students. And if you want to talk about integrity, you can't talk about this case having integrity when you have biases going on. So, but great question there. Lisa asks, I think it's our insider. Can you publicly see anyone's Venmos? No, you can't publicly see anyone's Venmos. You have to, there's a control to set it. But depending on who you're operating with, if they have their stuff set to public, then anybody can see theirs, which could link you to them. There's like a different bunch of ways that, but I'm over here just like, wow, like talk about nobody realizes that these apps, they were probably all invented by ex law enforcement. These are just stalking devices, man. So, oh, Cat says, Cat Farm says, you can't see Venmos from the UK. Damn UK, man, just always blocking you guys. Any other questions about this report? I'll give some questions up over here. Again, this is about the investigation. If anybody's been watching my stuff, this is all about an investigation. Well, thank you so much, is that Jay? Thank you, appreciate it. Oh, also want to show a couple other things. Please stop using all caps. Mods, make sure you guys are just delete the comments that are all caps. Do not use all caps. Thank you. Again, make sure you guys are joining us here at 12:30 Eastern Standard Time. If you want to watch the live hearing, it's Maddie's mom wants to, and the Chapins took it on as well, but there's going to be a live hearing. Right now, there's a temporary restraining order on crime scene photos coming out that are from the bedrooms of the victims' rooms. So, was the coach a head coach in 2022? No. Now, yes. So Matthew Harper says, I don't see it on Venmo. I'll post it on my community page. Thanks, Matthew. But it's there. In fact, it was the last name Ford was a couple different places because it was not just Kaylee that would get paid Venmo. Anybody, that's how they paid Venmo. So it wouldn't just be Kaylee's Venmo. It would be 4, 5, 6, 7 other girls that had Venmos from the family. Again, there could be many Fords. Trust me, Ford's a very common last name. Let's see. Oh. We're going to talk about Jack D's phone here. Okay. So something that I think is interesting. Take it for what you want. Okay. So Jack D's phone. These are some questions I have. Number one is Jack D, according to report 47 with the Moscow Police Department. Actually, I'll just show you. Okay. Okay, check this out. All right, so this is going to be report, as you can see, 47. And as you can see here, Jack Decor is the JD. And so these are the people that on November 13th, I was directed to interview potential witnesses in regards to the incidents. This is Lawrence Mowry. So I'm like, well, where is Jack D's written up report that Lawrence Mowry did of interviewing Jack D on 11/13? Or anybody for that matter. So here, let's get a little closer. Okay. I received signed consent forms from MD, which is Dylan Mortensen, A and C, and I was informed by Payne that, so these are last names, and I realized, okay, I was like, okay, he's now doing all just last names. He's not doing the first name. I was like, okay. So you got Mortensen, you got Decor, you got Alant, you got Chapin because they took Maisie's, okay, and then they got Bethany Funk who did it via, and I was like, wait a second, where's Hunter Johnson? Like he didn't go down, to the station. But anyways, as you can see here, they're saying that they went ahead and they extracted, the phones were extracted using the following forensic software. This is on 11/13. And they use the Celebrate version 7.50.0.172, and they use the Axiom version. Boom. I said, well, that's interesting because now it says upon completion of the extractions, the phones were returned to their owner as promptly as possible. The data extracted was saved to a computer located in the secure forensic computer lab at the Moscow Police Department. A forensic examination on the phones will be completed at my earliest convenience. Well, look at when this was written up, 11/30. So what that tells me, for the record, is that he still has not done a forensic examination, meaning looking at any of the stuff. He has not looked at any of these. Okay. Period. Like that's what he's saying. But he's also saying that he was able to perfectly fine download these. There's no issues. You see anything written up that there's any issues here? Okay. No, you don't. It doesn't say, oh, I couldn't download this. We couldn't get any of these extractions. No. So when you take this, okay. I noted in looking at the phone records, this is now ISP on November 17th. Because on November 15th, that's when the mom was like, yeah, no, we're going to get a lawyer to come back here. So I noted in looking at phone records, but there had been several text messages the night before between Kaylee and Jack. The last text message was from Kaylee to Jack at 2:15 a.m. telling him that she had his vape and that he could come pick it up. Now, he maintained that he got home around 1, and he maintained that he went to bed around 1:20. Well, if you go and you look at the MPD reports that involve the president from one of the fraternities that actually picked up Decor, he had his phone, and so he was at. Yep, they text me. I text them to say I'm here at the corner club at 1:49 a.m. And then the corner club has Decor and his buddies walking out at 1:51 a.m. Okay, so Decor couldn't have gotten home at 1 o'clock. Decor would have had to gotten home. Now, ready for this? If you're leaving the corner club at 1:51 a.m. and you add 5 minutes, that's 1:56. Would you believe it or not that Kaylee in her vehicle that she took, which was with Eric Rower, they got home at 1:56. So literally both people are getting home at the same time. Decor's getting dropped off at 1:56 and Kaylee is getting dropped off at 1:56. Um, I do apologize. Hold on. This was actually all given up before the mom says, "Hey, we're gonna, hey, select the good job to the mom here." So this is all on the 15th. Okay. Now I want you to see something. This is what doesn't make any sense. Hang tight 1 second. Okay, here we go. So they're claiming that they took Decor's phone, okay, on 11/13. So think about this. They took his phone on 11/13. There was no issues extracting this, they said. And so they had it. Then they gave it back to him. Now, on November 17th, I asked him directly if he had anything to do with the murders. Now, this is at him at Idaho State Police. I later took the DNA samples and transferred them to the custodian of Moscow Police Department. I took thumb drive containing the download from Jack's phone and transferred that to the custody of the Moscow Police Department. Blank signed the forms of both his DNA and for the download of his phone. And I'm like, wait a second. They did what? He gave his phone again. So he has also consensually gave his cell phone to be downloaded. I was like, they already have his phone being downloaded, right? But now hear this, ready? If you would want to see what Jack D would have then done between, I guess you could say, we gave it back to him on November 13th after we downloaded it. Then we're going to do it again on the 17th. Okay. So then we're going to get November, more stuff from November 13th night, 14th, 15th, 16th, and now the 17th to see if he would have been like texting people after the fact, but I'm over here like, wait, but his phone has already been extracted once. And they said that it was successful, Now, also, Van Leuven's claiming in this report that's written up way later, he's claiming that Jack D consensually gave his cell phone to be downloaded. I later took the DNA sample and transferred them to the custody of the Moscow Police Department. I took the thumb drive containing the download from Jack's phone and transferred that to the custody of the Moscow Police Department. Jack signed consent forms for both his DNA and for the download of his phone. I have scanned these forms and placed them on discs, which will be transmitted to the Moscow Police Department. I attached the original forms to the supplement. And so that was all that was handled on November 17th. Okay. So then I go and I grab Detective Mowry's written report on 11/28. Okay. And this is on November 17th, Jack DeCore was interviewed by Sergeant Van Leuven from the Idaho State Police at the ISP District 1. At that time, he provided his phone to Sergeant Van Leuven along with consent to the search of the phone. That phone is an iPhone XR with IMEI blank, transported to the Coeur d'Alene Police Department Forensic Lab at blank in Coeur d'Alene, Idaho. I applied for and was granted a search warrant to access the contents of the iPhone. The phone was to be extracted by Detective Dustin Taylor of the Coeur d'Alene Police Department. Detective Mike Van Leuven had taken the phone to Dustin Taylor at the computer forensic lab at Coeur d'Alene Police Department. I emailed a copy of the warrant to him at 16:43 hours on November 17th. And I'm like, okay. This is very odd because I'm like, maybe he messed up the name Jack DeCore on the 13th and he put Jack DeCore in his report and he really meant to say that he got the signed consent and the name should have been Jack DeCore. It should have been Hunter Johnson. Okay. So on November 18th, while confirming Detective Taylor received the warrant, I was informed that the phone was no longer at the Coeur d'Alene Police Department. Idaho State Police Lieutenant Paul Berger picked up the phone from Taylor and delivered it to the Spokane County Sheriff's Office, where Investigative Analysis VJ, it's redacted, received it. The data on the phone was forensically extracted at that location. On November 19th, Idaho State Police Detective Richard, God, he doesn't even know what it's Rich Alderson. What? Rich Alderson. His name is Richard. Last name is Alderson. What? He just combines his name. Just so you guys know, Rich Alderson worked on the Brian Drake case. A phenomenal pastor, not a detective. So I'm like, okay, let's just. I'm like, well, where are all these reports from all these Idaho State police dudes doing this shit, right? You got to go look for it. So this is not a last name. This is two names combined. It's Richard Alderson. Okay. He thinks that his name is Detective Rich Alderson. Rich Alderson. That's his. They just combined his first and last to give him. That's his last. Again, I want you to see how it says Jack Decor, JD. JD. Okay. I don't know how you mistake that you're interviewing, but then I was like, oh, when did you write this up? Oh, this is why, you fucking idiot. But you see the problems here? See this shit? So in here, going back to this, Rich Alderson, come on down. Rich Alderson retrieved the phone from the forensic lab and delivered the phone to Decor's mother, per the attorney's wishes. Isn't his phone like part? But hey, so she got it back, okay? Because then you got to go back to this, and you got to see when they were interviewed. Back over here, ISP. What date does he say that he gave it back to him? Okay, so here they're saying in this report, he's saying that on November 19th, the Idaho State Police retrieved it and then was able to give the phone back to the mom on November 19th. So you go to okay. So he wouldn't have had Jack's phone. Then when he's saying, I noted in looking at phone records, okay? But based on this report, one would think that they had it because they had interviewed Jack D supposedly at the police department on November 13th. But they didn't interview him. Okay? This is wrong. And they never extracted his phone. So now I also know that they weren't able to get into Kaylee's phone, but they could get records via Verizon or T-Mobile, whoever you're going to go through in terms to get you, your call logs, your CDRs. I'm like, this is a mess. These people are a mess. And so here he states, where does he say that he specifically gives this back? So think about this. If you're Jack D, how would you not realize that you have your phone? You would have had it to look at it. You're going through things with Olivia to figure out stuff, right? And then so when you would have been meeting with the police, why are you still saying that you got dropped off at 1:00? When in your phone, because the guy that actually dropped them off, he's like, yeah, that all happened at I got there at 1:49, and then they came out and it matches perfectly with Corner Club at 1:51, and then I dropped them off. So I'm just kind of shocked that Jack D would have still been maintaining that he got home at 1 o'clock. It's very odd to me. But because he has his phone, nothing was taken from it yet. And but let's see. Okay, now take a look. On November 21st, Detective Anderson of the Idaho State Police provided Sergeant Van Leeuwen with a USB drive containing the extraction. Who the fuck is Detective Anderson? You mean Alderson? The fuck are you talking about? On November 19th, Idaho State Police Detective Richard Alderson retrieved the phone from the forensic lab and delivered the phone to Decor's mom, per the attorney's wishes. On November 21st, 2022, Detective, it's not Anderson, I'm telling you that, I believe it's Alderson, of the Idaho State Police provided Sergeant Van Leeuwen with a USB drive containing the extraction. Sergeant Van Leeuwen then provided the USB drive to me, meaning Maori, and it was placed into the secure forensic lab at the Moscow Police Department. An examination will be completed at my earliest convenience. This means that they did not examine the extraction. So when you go back to then here, and he's saying, I had additional follow-up questions with Jack on November 18th, November 21st, November 22nd. The conversations on the 21st and 22nd, they were recorded. But guess what? The 18th, not so much. And so do you see how it says it's going in chronological order? November 18th, boom. Before that's November 17th. Before that, it's November 15th. Okay. And he doesn't want to write anything about what you talked about him on November 21st and November 22nd. And why not? Why aren't you writing that up? You just want to talk about on. We don't know what day this is on. Oh yeah, we do. On January 4th, you contacted him about getting to do the hair, right? Well, these are the most important interviews, November 21st and November 22nd. You want to know why? Because that's when he would have had, if he looked at it. Did Van Leeuwen look at the extraction from Jack's phone? Because then it's almost like he didn't, because if you go back to this, he says that he didn't have to use it. Oh, not that one. Oopsies. If you go back to this. Since the warrant was not served, I did not complete a warrant return receipt as nothing was collected. Court documents were sent to the Latah County Prosecutor's Office to be returned to the court. And I'm like, he didn't need the warrant, you guys, because he consented over here, right? He consented. So what I'm going to show you guys is I was able to follow all of these paths, and it is 100% confirmed that whatever happened on November 21st and November 22nd in Jack D's interviews are really, really important, because that's what the information Idaho State Police, you'd have to see if Van Leeuwen wrote up in his report, which he didn't, what came from him with the extraction of Jack D's phone. Because now, based on this, he has his time messed up by an hour. And the last text message was from Kaylee at 2:15 about the vape pen. And then there's the 20, or then there's a 17-minute phone call at 2:26 that lasts for 17 minutes. But he has no idea what that's about. And I find this all extremely odd because based on what Olivia Gonsalves was saying, and that Jack came over there and they were like going through everything and getting in contact with everybody that Kaylee talked to, you would have come across that, hey, Jack, you talked to Kaylee for 17 minutes. And that all stayed out of the public eye. So, I mean, I don't know. They didn't look into anybody's phones, none of the victims' phones. They didn't even have them. Then when you want to track down the victims' phones, on November 16th, I transported the 4 cell phones belonging to Kaylee, Maddie, Xana, and Ethan to Coeur d'Alene and gave them to Taylor. Okay, now check this out. Why are you giving them to Taylor when Taylor can't do dick? The phone was to be extracted by Detective Dustin Taylor of the Coeur d'Alene Police Department. But remember, this is for Jax, but he couldn't. Like, why did you even take it to him, Van Leuven? Because you would have known, I don't know, a day earlier that. So Taylor was able to extract on November 17th at approximately 12:49. I picked up the cell phones from Detective Taylor and brought them back to MPD and gave them back to Detective Mowry. What? So Danny's just putting in what she was driving around being a taxi. On November 21st, 2022, I transported the phones belonging to Chapin Mogan and Granado to CDA PD and dropped them off with Detective Jesse Welch. Because Taylor, just so we're clear, he said he couldn't get into the phones. On November 21st, I transported 2 separate charging cords belonging to the electronic devices to the Post Falls Police Department. They were, I believe, for laptops. Because these were with Neil Urich. So I'm tracking all these down to see what's the earliest that you would have ever started viewing the roommates and the victims' data. On November 15th, 2022, Mowry writes this up so much later. Like, Mowry contacted Detective David Taylor of the Coeur d'Alene Police Department with a request for an agency assist. I requested assistance unlocking the cell phones of Kaylee, Maddie, Xana, and Ethan, the victims in this case. I emailed Taylor a copy of the signed warrant describing the phones as being searchable. On November 16th, so Vargas, the phones were transported to the CDA Police Department. Danny Vargas. So I was like, yeah. When did she write up her report for this one? On 11/21. He wrote his up on 12/5. So they were transported to the CDA Police Department for a forensic brute force attempt to unlock them. However, Detective Taylor stated that he was not able to extract any information from the locked phones, and the phones were not supported for the brute force PIN code extraction. The phones were then returned to the Moscow Police Department on November 17th. I then asked for the assistance from Captain Tyson Barrett in attempting to gain PIN codes from the family members. Then again, I'm like over here, what day did you do this on? But he got these PIN codes. He was able to, on 3 of them, they were able to unlock. I performed advanced logical extractions. Then watch this. And I'm able to look at the Idaho State Police Department ones and figure out these dates because of that. But within 2 days of each other, he decides that he's going to do an advanced logical extraction. And then literally 2 days later, on November 20th, I again requested the assistance of Detective Taylor in gaining a full file system extraction. Why wouldn't you do that by itself first? Because every time that you would know this, that you would attempt to do the data pull, you're going to lose data. This is how John O'Keefe's data was lost. This is how Liberty, I mean, what are these people not gaining any intel from these cases? So my question is why wouldn't you do the full file system extraction on the 3 unlocked devices? Why would you do that after you did a advanced logical extraction on the devices? It's almost like you know that you're going to lose data, and there's certain data that you would want to lose almost. Because anybody would tell you that you would be doing a full file system right off the bat. You would never do this. So again, I'm mind blown. The phones were delivered to CDA Police Department on November 21st, 2022. On November 22nd, 2022, Detective Taylor stated he would not be able to complete the extractions. On November 23rd, I went to the CDA Police Department and picked up the phones. I then took them to the Post Falls, and this is where you get Detective Urig involved now. Detective Urig informed me that his forensic tools would not support a full file system extraction. On November 25th, 2022, then you have to go to this Walla Walla dude, Detective Chris Rucker. I said, did you tell her that you did the advanced logical first? I just want to know, did you tell these people that? Because Detective Rucker stated that her forensic tools would be able to support a full file system extraction on the unlocked devices and would be able to complete limited extraction on Kaylee's locked phone. I left the phones with the detective to be extracted. Kaylee's family, they didn't know her PIN. On November 28th, the female detective informed me that the phone extractions were completed and ready to be picked up. On November 29th, Detective Justin Dean picked up the phones and returned them to the Moscow Police Department. I received the 4 devices and placed them in the secure computer forensic lab. The extracted data was copied to the forensic computers and verified by hash values. What's up, Willie? So this is the way that I was tracking down to do my timeline to see when it is the earliest date that they could have actually started viewing the material. And this tells me that the earliest that they could have started viewing the material. And that's why I think that Maury is writing up his reports like, I'll get it to my earliest convenience and shit like that. Well, I think that you're giving it to the FBI, right? But if you don't have the information yet, you can't possibly look into it. And they didn't have any of these people's phones and the data with it, like Ethan and Xana and text messaging or calling and what would be in the knowledge sea and steps taken with the phone and a GPS location, like all that type of stuff is the earliest would be November 29th. Okay. So then I said to myself, okay, if you go and you look at the Moscow Police Department, and when they put out that they were looking for more information on Xana and Ethan's whereabouts, like we can't say that they got home at 2 o'clock. Okay. Like, but they never could say that. Those girls never told them that Ethan and Xana were home at 2, meaning the girls as in Bethany and Dylan. So when they came out and they said that everybody, you know, was home by 2, when they came out that they wanted more information on Ethan and Xana's whereabouts, they could never do that. And now they didn't have their phones extracted with the information until 11/29. When did Maury find the time to look? An examination of the data will be completed at my earliest convenience. Okay, well, when was that? When was that? Or is that just your way of saying, because you're not going to write it in there, that I turned it over to the FBI, you know? So this is the breakdown on explaining that I am 100% confident when I say that they didn't get into anybody's phones and have the capability to look into any of these phones in an extracted manner with Cellbrite, Axiom, whatever tool, forensic tool you used until 11/29 of 2022. But they did have Bethany and Dylan's immediately. So they immediately knew that the stuff that Ann Taylor's team found with the deletions, there's no special stuff that Josiah Roloff used. That's all there in what they've done. But I have a question. How come they didn't send this is my question. You don't want to go and look for things when you can't, it's bad. Okay. Right here, they decide that they do a Maury did. On the 3 devices I was able to unlock, I performed an advanced logical extraction. Okay. Well, what versions did you use? You see here how he's like typing this all out, what he did. I received the signed consent forms, like this is on the day that on 11/13. And then I was informed by Corporal Brett Payne that Bethany provided verbal consent for her phone to be extracted. The phones were extracted using the following forensic software. Boom. Upon completion of the extractions, the phones were returned to their owner. Like they got them back that day. And then here, a forensic examination on the phones will be completed upon my earliest convenience. And I said, why? Why? But this is what everyone needs to pay attention to. He wrote that on 11/30/2022. Do you understand that he wrote that on 11/30/2022? He wrote the report, meaning that he never even looked at, he's claiming that he never looked at it. Do you believe that? He needs to claim this though for like 11/30. You right. Think about what happened on 11/25, 26, 27, 28, 29, 30. He is making it seem like he didn't look at anybody's shit when he typed this up on 11/30. So that's how I'm able to tell everybody out here. I just provided proof that there is no way that the Moscow Police Department, based on their reports and how you would attack this in a courtroom, is to say, well, based on your report, you hadn't looked at anything yet, right? On 11/30. So you didn't look in the surviving roommates' phones to see like who they were texting, calling, what was going on, where their locations were. You're trying to solve a murder, like quadruple homicide? they tell you that they're drunk and they don't remember things. Well, wouldn't this be a really good way to help them remember, or you can do it for them? Okay. So here, this is proof beyond a reasonable doubt of anything that you didn't get into, you didn't look, we don't even know. Okay, so did you do a full file? Is this a full file? Because why wouldn't you take these devices like you did with you wanted to do a full file system extraction after you extracted the, let's see here. You extracted, which you don't even say how you did it. You did it advanced logical, but you don't. So what was this? This UFED, is that like a, yeah. And now I'm guessing that it's not a full file because you couldn't do these with the full file because you had to send them to somebody else. So these couldn't have been done with the full file, right? Like that's just logic for me. But you didn't get the surviving roommates' phones in their extraction. You haven't even gone through it, and it's on 11:30. And nor have you done it with the victims' phones because you didn't get them back until 11:29. Okay, so we have both. We have all the main people here, and you haven't looked into any of their phone data. And you get all of this back, miraculously, and write this report up after you have the name Brian Koberger. And people can say, what do you mean they had the name? Because Dustin Blaker and their asses over there had on 11/25 the first batch from Pullman Police Department. On 11/25, they had 12 vehicles, and one of those 12 vehicles that they had was the license plate of Brian Koberger on 12/5. On 11/25. Yet they don't use Pullman in their PCA at all. In fact, they use in their PCA WSU, who I haven't come across either one of those two running a query yet. Also, I think everybody's, if you guys haven't seen the picture of Brian's car, he had that bug guard on there. That would be significant. That'd be significant when you're looking at surveillance cameras. I didn't know that Brian had that until I got to see these pictures of the car inside the garage. I think that would be significant with pictures. He also didn't have the Pennsylvania plates on 11/25. He had already switched them on 11/18. They also, Detective Payne told everybody that we were not thinking that there was a vehicle. We weren't looking for a vehicle without a front license plate. We weren't. That's not what that did not become on our radar until after December 19th. So all I'm trying to say is I'm trying to understand an investigation based on these reports. And it's so understandable how Ann Taylor she got it super quick, that there is no way that the FBI wasn't involved in the capacity of doing everything, like literally doing everything. But there had to be something extra. Also, in none of these reports, I guess you get to have to go look at Dustin Blaker's report of transporting this to Othram and see when that was written up. I don't know what they were relying on until on 11:30, 11:29. You don't have any of the phone. Well, I'm sorry, let me take that back. I thought that they had extracted these phones and were using these phones. According to Detective Mowry, which I believe he's lying, but I can't prove that he's lying. I can just prove that you can only go with what his report says. He's saying that the forensic examination on the phones will be completed at my earliest convenience. And he's saying that in a report that he wrote on 11/30. And so this would assume to the reader of the report that, okay, on 11/30, when you wrote up this report, you hadn't looked at the phones of Bethany. You hadn't examined. Yeah, correct. Well, who did you provide them to? You may have not have looked at this, but who did you provide the forensic who did you provide these extractions to on 11/13 or 11/14 or 11/15? The FBI? Is that what you're leaving out on this lovely report, that you gave that to the FBI? Why would you leave that out on your report? Or he'd say, no, I didn't give it to them. I didn't give it to them. Okay, so these are just sitting. You have 120 agents and nobody was looking through the phone extractions of any of these people? It's diabolical. All right. Join me back. Thank you. At 12:30. If you guys don't know, there's already been a thumbnail for it. It's for the live courtroom. It's a big old mess right now with the crime scene photos. Maddie's family that's been joined by Ethan's family. And I think some people are going to be speaking on it in terms of if these should be released, if they shouldn't be released. So, all right, join me back here at 12:30. It kicks off at 1 p.m. Eastern time. Peace out, Girl Scouts, Boy Scouts. Hit the thumbs up, hit the thumbs down, make yourself known. And thank you for, Dinky, I missed Dinky. Third baby due soon, Dinky, 26 months. Yeah. And here, Pete. Lana is the Michael Jordan of research and now. Thank you, Pete. $20. Boom. And I think I told you, Mina Cox, baby. What a name, Mina Cox. $49.99. Thank you for all of your hard work. Thank you. Don't mess with Mina Cox, man. Talk about a bag of dicks. Back at ya.